What's up? All right. Yeah, we'll get this thing started. I'm always I'm often late to places, so when I do like a session or something, I feel like I have to start a little bit later. Otherwise, I feel like a hypocrite. You know what I mean? Like I'm not giving a shout out to those people that maybe might come in late. But thank you so much. Hey, there it is. Shout out. Give it up. I'm always late. It's cool. You're good. You're welcomed here. You make me feel comfortable. Like I'm always late to playing things. I'm glad somebody was. It makes me feel good. So hey, so we're gonna be talking about just mission trip culture and expedition teams and how to get those out there. I know the title was there's this formula that Chi Alpha has that you put like what you want into it, and the computer spits out, and it just spit it out. Expedition teams, and that was like the name. It was between that and binary code, and I'm pretty sure most of you guys can't understand binary code, so we stuck with expeditions team. So that's what we got. So hey, so we'll be talking about that, but I kind of just want to share with you guys just my story and just kind of why I was asked, I guess, or things like that. So I just want to introduce my wife. She's here. That's right. Your boy's got game. What's up? I ain't a chump. So thank you, baby. Story of my life right there. So my name is Andy Estrella. I'm the director at Missouri State Chi Alpha. I've been there now 10 years. Wow, 10 years. So this year was 10 years, hoping for 10 more, 30 more, whatever. So basically, the way kind of we started missions culture in our ministry was basically we didn't really have one first, right? There wasn't really people going on a mission trip. At that time, Severin Luali, as you guys know him, the international student ministry director, was a part of our team. And every summer, every few summers, he would take a team to Kenya. And he would take like a round of team of 7, and like 4 of them were people he knew from Springfield. And then like the other 3 were people from our Chi Alpha that he got going. And it kind of speaks to his leadership because the culture wasn't really in the ministry. And I remember one year, we were planning to go back to Kenya, and it didn't work out, and we had to cancel the trip, and it was just a really kind of hard time. I was like, just thinking we need to kind of get this culture going here. And we're like, I'm like, hey, we need to take a team somewhere on spring break. We're going to do it. And I was like, I don't know where we're going to go. And at that time, Christine Carlson, she was on our team. She still is on our team. And she came from Virginia there, UVA, with Pete Bulette. And she was like, oh, when I was there, a team went to the Atlanta Dream Center, and it was nice. And basically, that's the research we did on the place. And I was like, that, I like going to nice places. Do you like going to nice places? Let's go together to nice places. So that was basically the extent of research we did on that trip. And then so we just went for it, right? And I usually kind of dream big, and man, I thought we were just going to take, a grip of students. And at that time, our ministry, was around, around 40, maybe 60 students. So, I was thinking, at least take a group of 10. So, we're throwing it out there, and, we put the price, I think it was like $250 to go on this mission trip. And we're like, man, you need to go. And I remember I raised some money to make sure, we can get out there. And man, I'm pumping it. We're excited about it. I'm meeting with students, and 5 students commit. So it was 5 students, and I was like, all right, cool. We got 5. Let's do this. And we went on this trip to Atlanta, and I actually have the picture of that team. Those are the 5 students we took to Atlanta Dream Center over there. And, called the church and begged them to let us use their van, which is easier to get a church to pledge to you than them to give you their van for a week. I promise. I felt like the CIA had to come and do an investigation, and then I got the van. And so we just went on this mission trip to Atlanta, and we had an amazing time. They made us sleep on the floor. They didn't really have everything together, but it didn't matter. We went, and God moved. God moved in the ministry, but most of all, God moved in our hearts. And I remember while we were on the trip, we're just kind of having a moment, just like, man, this is great, what God's doing. And I looked over at that time, Nee Abraham, you guys probably know him at the World Mission Summit. He was the host, one of the hosts for the World Mission Summit. I looked at him, I was like, you want to help me lead this next year? And he was like, I guess, yeah, let's go. And, we go back and, we commit to go back to Atlanta. Why? Because it's a nice place. And it was confirmed. It was confirmed that it was nice. So we, pumped it out there. And at this time, Nee was with me. And Megan graduated, but she still was around town. So she came and shared her testimony. All the other students graduated. So it was really them two kind of more Nee. And we shared it with more students. And then the next year, we took 22 students to the Atlanta Dream Center. And we're like, man, this is awesome. And then, we did the same thing. We looked around, having a moment, and it was nothing really planned, but I was like, man, who wants to come back and, do this next year? And, they're like, man, I want to come back. I was all right. So, got some students all pumped about it. And then, we go back and we're, pushing our mission trips again. And we realized that there was a lot of students that wanted to come. And we're like, what are we going to do? And so we started thinking about it. And then, we're calling around. We're like, I think we need to go somewhere else because there's going to be too many people going. And so, we said, we went to Atlanta Dream Center. Let's go to the Memphis Dream Center. It's like kind of the same theme, all right? It's not really rocket science here. So we split up into two teams, and we started kind of formulating this philosophy, what we want our missions to look like. And we sent those two teams out, and it was awesome. And then the following year, we built into 4 teams and two foreign missions teams. And then, then after that, we went to 9, and we've been up to 13 teams out there. And just every year, we just grown and grown and grown. And God has done amazing things. This past year, we took out 9 missions teams. We had like around 103 students go on missions trips. And we just had, just a couple of weeks ago, our team come back from Ukraine. And it's just been an awesome journey what God has done. And it's been amazing what God has done through our missions program. And I'm excited to talk about. So basically, this session, the way we're going to work it out, we're going to start with the why. Like, why do we go on mission trips? Why, most mission trips are a week. Why would you even do a mission trip for a week? What's the whole point, and where we want to lead up to, and how does the mission trip culture kind of assist what we're trying to do in our mission to reach students, disciple them, and raise them up, to be about God's mission. So we're going to go over the why, and then we're going to go down for you guys who are like, that's cool, that's awesome, the why, but what are the components, right? I want to know, like, how do you do this, and what's the purpose of this, and what's the point of this? And then we're kind of going to give you tools of this thing, how that happens. And then we're going to finish up for those of you who are be like, all right, that's really great to know, but like, I'm starting from square one. I don't know how to get started. We're going to talk about how to start this thing, and then we're going to open up for Q&A, probably do a few things in between. But, doing this session with me is Britt, and he's just amazing what God's doing on their campus. It's awesome. Our team came over, got to visit the campus and kind of learn what God's doing over there. And so, he's jumped in to kind of share about this because God's done amazing things on his campus, and also they have a great missions program. So here he is. He's going to be talking about the why. Give it up.
What's up, everybody? You doing well? Yes? I like it when people answer out loud. So my name is Derek. Like you said, I'm at Indiana University. I've been there. We pioneered starting 7 years ago. We're about to go into our 8th year. Missions has been a little bit of a journey for us, Expeditions teams, trying to figure out how to do this. And my big thing in ministry and in life is answering the why. Why are we doing this? If you haven't figured that out with your students, that's the one question they're asking all the time is why. We have a leadership training class in the spring. The number one thing that we get from people all the time is, why is this necessary? And being able to answer these questions, not for your students, but for yourself is really important. And I think especially and uniquely with Expeditions. And so you might have come to this, and I don't know why you came into the room and what was on your heart when you came into the room, but I think answering this question is important because Expeditions is kind of one of those things that's been around from the beginning since I've been in Chi Alpha. Missions has kind of been a theme in Chi Alpha. It's a part of what we do. And so sometimes in the church, if you haven't noticed, we've got about 2,000 years of baggage of like, oh yeah, we do this thing, but I'm not really sure why we do that. It's like when we had hymns for a long time, we kind of like scrapped it somewhere along the line. We never really asked the question why they did hymns to begin with. And when we stopped asking that question, we stopped remembering why that was important and the kind of the discipleship tool that hymns were. So when you think about Missions Week, or I say Missions Week, that's one of the tools we use as part of Expeditions. When you think about Expeditions, I think answering the why is really, 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 really important. There's a lot of money involved in Expeditions, tons and tons, thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. And if we're not answering the question, why are we doing this in some kind of significant way, like we kind of have to answer to God for that, in my opinion. And so I want to ask you that, put the pressure on you a little bit. Why do we do Expeditions? Why do you think this is an important thing to be a part of your campus ministry? And I'm asking you to answer that question out loud. Yes. What's that? Exposure? What do you mean by that? Okay, so exposure to different cultures and what it's like maybe to live out missionally after you graduate? So it's a discipleship tool. Can you clarify that a little bit more? Like how is it a discipleship tool? Okay. Seeing it in that context and people doing it in that context is a discipleship tool. Okay. Encouraging them to give their money to these missionaries and to other missionaries. Anything else? Obeying. Okay. So he said go. Okay. So that's actually a great place to launch out here because I agree with you, but I think nuance is important. But go, Jesus obviously didn't tell us go for a week and then go home, right? And so that's, you hear, have anybody ever heard like criticism of short-term missions trips? Have you guys processed this and dealt with this? So this is my why, and I gave Andy my why and what I wanted on the handout, and he was like, that's not good enough. So he added one onto it. But my why was just going to be this first thing, and that is that we're trying to change the world, right? We need that at the foundation of who we are. We have that in our mission statement, right? That in the mission statement here, you put it in here, right? We reconcile students to Christ, equipping them through spirit-filled communities of prayer, worship, fellowship, discipleship, and mission to transform the university, the marketplace, and the world. And so here's my opinion. I think if you're going to send, like I went with Brian to Mali with a group of guys, Chi Alpha directors, and we got to see what was going on there. Then we sent a team over there. And so if you think about Mali, it's not an easy place to get to. If you're having to spend a couple $1,000s for 15 people, you're spending $30,000 to go to a country. You have to answer. You remember Scott yesterday said, he was talking to Dick Brogdon, and he was saying, you're here to make disciples, but to what end? So you're spending $30,000 to go to Mali, to what end? And I think personally, I feel strongly that we need a better answer than just the discipleship tool. It is that. I am unequivocally okay with the fact that a trip to Mali can change one of my students' lives forever. I believe that. I believe it can change the trajectory of their life. What I don't necessarily believe is that those 15 students going to Mali is going to change the direction of the people of Mali for generations to come. That week is going to be really difficult. That's a lot of pressure to put on those 10, sophomores, juniors, and seniors or whatever in college to change the direction of a country. So is that the point in that week to do that? And I think we always are trying to answer, and maybe like that $30,000, we're trying to justify it. And so we're lining up, activities to do. And it's like, are these activities good enough to justify this or whatever? And I just think we need to reshape it completely. The question is it worth it? Why do we do it? And in my mind, the two things that are huge for me is that I want to see, if I send 15 students to Mali, we spend $30,000 to go there. The way that that's worth it to me is if my student is on his knees in the middle of Mali looking at the need, looking at what is necessary to reach that country, and God calls them to Mali. Like, that is worth the other 14 people going. I don't know the math and how it's all going to work, but that's worth the $30,000. That's worth what we invested into it. But if we're not clear on the why, that we actually want to change the world, we're here to transform the university, the marketplace, and the world. The question is, how do we send missionaries? How do we do that? And I think answering that question is really, really important, answering this why. So I was sitting with Pete Bulette, actually, who you mentioned, and in Charlottesville, Virginia, and he was talking about his process coming to UVA. He went out to Sam Houston, and he talked to them about how they were sending missionaries all over the world. And Pete was at is at one of the premier academic institutions in the country. And as he was processing what he saw in terms of missions at Sam Houston, he started asking the question, why couldn't God do that at UVA? And so he started processing, how do I build a missions culture to transform the world from my campus? And I remember like sitting in the restaurant with him and him telling me that. It was right at the beginning of my time at IU. One of the things I had in my heart, I put it in the first newsletter that I ever sent out, that we're not just here to build a big group on campus at Indiana University. We're here to send missionaries all over the world. And so we can have a group of 200, 300, 400, but if I'm not sending missionary after missionary after missionary into the marketplace, to the university, to the world, then I feel like we're not actually living out reaching the most strategic mission field on planet Earth. And so I started to process, what would that look like at IU? So we started really committing to doing this, to owning that it was about our students. It wasn't just about the places that we were sending them. We want to serve people well. We want to love our missionaries that are out doing the work all over the world. But even our missionaries would say part of the reason that they take short-term expeditions trips is because they want God to raise up workers to go into the world and see people transform for Jesus, to make disciples. And so we started building that at IU. Andy was a huge part, actually hearing stories of what they were doing, started to transform it for me. And what I started sharing with our students is that we wanted to see the world transform from Bloomington, Indiana. We believed that. That was something that I heard, like Eli talk about. We want to see God change the world from Huntsville, Texas. We started saying we want to see God change the world from Bloomington, Indiana. And I would say this in terms of the why. The expeditions to me, and Brian may disagree with me, I don't know, but expeditions to me is a tool to get us there. It's a tool to help us change the world. It's not just about exposure, though it is that. It's not just a discipleship tool, though it is definitely that. But it is a tool for us to change the world. And I'll end with these couple things. I was sitting with Eli Gotro because I'm just trying to figure out what they're doing and all that. And I asked him the question, how do you send people all over the world? How do you send a team to another country to start Chi Alpha, to start a training center with Live Dead, or all these things that you're doing? How do you do it? And his answer was pretty simple. It was interesting. He said, basically, you just take 100 people and 10% of them will stay. 10% of them will get it, they'll understand it, and they'll go. He didn't have like a big answer, that was deep and profound. It was just, if people could see the need, some of them will respond to it. And so when we started talking as a ministry about seeing the Baltic states, Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia, we started looking at these countries and thinking, how could God start Chi Alpha here? How could we get our students to understand this need and go to these places and share the gospel with people and start Chi Alpha in these countries? And what we did was essentially the next year we took 50 people, 50 students and staff. I asked all of our staff members to go, and we went, and the whole trip, we got on a tour bus, we went around, we prayed, we showed people the need, and we asked them, if you're willing, would you stay? Because I believe not a lot of Indiana University students are waking up in the middle of the night thinking, I need to be a missionary in Lithuania. Right? Now, people aren't thinking about it. I've heard somebody say information precedes calling. Can God miraculously reveal it? Yes, he can. But we can do our part in showing people that need. And so the why for me is we want to see the world change. And I believe Expeditions is an awesome tool to make that happen. And then I'm going to give this back to Andy in just a second. There are 4 puzzle pieces in Chi Alpha. You guys know what they are? Healthy leaders, disciple-making groups, spiritual empowerment, and what's the 4th one? Cross-cultural mission. I remember when we were coming up with the puzzle pieces, they asked us, people were asking this question, why cross-cultural mission? Do we really have to send missions? Do we really have to send teams overseas? Do we really have to send missionaries in order to be a healthy Chi Alpha group? And what the 4 puzzle pieces were was an evaluation of what was happening in Chi Alpha. What was the good things that were happening? It seemed like every place that really like deep disciple making was happening, they seemed to have cross-cultural mission at the heart of it. And I believe that's not by chance. I believe that every student that is challenged on their knees before God and they are praying, God, I will go anywhere. I will do anything. If we can get our students to that place through Expeditions, through any other means that we have, if we can get them to that place, then they actually will follow Jesus for the rest of their lives, right? They will do anything for him. And so for me, that was the why. And there's a lot of logistical things, and Andy and I are similar, and the admin is not our strong suit, but miraculously Andy has figured out how to do some of these things and to share them with you. And what he's put together for you is absolutely amazing. He's interviewed directors from across the country who are doing this extremely well, not just sending teams, but sending missionaries all over the world, and gotten their answers, and he's going to share them with you today. And so Andy has done a lot of work, a lot more work than I have for this. And so you can give it up for him as he comes back and shares it with you real quick.
Give it up. My dude bringing it. So that was awesome. Thank you. So basically what we're going to be breaking out is the components. Like Derek said, I called directors kind of across this country that are doing a very, very good job with their missions program. They're sending out ample, they're doing, one of the groups, Sam, they're doing, 26 mission trips, 13, and, they're having around, 100, 150, just an enormous amount of students going out to the mission field and just asking them some questions. And then what I did was kind of find the common thread, like each one really focused on these areas, and it's kind of the areas I kind of broke down. They all have components of these things, and one of the things that we have to understand with missions, and it's kind of the last point I made of this, it would be very difficult for a student to contemplate giving a year if they've never gone for 1 week. For their mind to get there, it would be very difficult unless they have that experience. So, that's why we're a part of that. So, if you can show the next slide. So here's some of the components. Every Chi Alpha that I called, that I interacted with, that I talked, had a process of choosing a place, like how they go. They literally had, some of them had philosophies, some of them had some type of criteria. It's like, this is, the things that we need to go to this place. It was a lot more than nice. My original criteria, my bubble got busted. I was like, I thought they just had to be nice. And they all are pretty serious about, going to a place and then choosing a place. They just don't choose any place. They pray about it, and they kind of have a few things that kind of commonly thread. They go where it can help facilitate their vision, your vision for your Chi Alpha expedition and missions program. It's somewhere that can facilitate. You can go to the next slide. That vision. They want to know. They want to go somewhere that can enhance that. That students can further walk on their journey, understanding the vision that you have for them to understand missions, to be a part of it, to give towards it, and to even go themselves for that. And one of the things that they constantly do is they're constantly evaluating where they're at. So one of the things that you want to consider is, I would say, take advantage of the things that you have access to. If you're on the West Coast, a flight to the Philippines is much cheaper than me in the Midwest. And in fact, if you're on the East Coast, it's almost twice as much, it might be, to get there, twice as long to land there. So a lot of times you take advantage. So a lot of these guys that I talked to, like, why do you went there? Well, for us, it just worked out because of this. Some Chi Alphas on the East Coast, I found that they invest a lot in the Middle East. And they can do a spring break trip there because it's just, a flight over. It's easier to get there. It's much affordable to set that price line so people can go and have that experience. So take advantage of your surroundings. Take advantage of your area, what you have access. An example for us on spring break, we do all domestic trips, and I have this rule. I say we don't jump on planes on spring break. It's a personal rule. You don't have to write it down as your notes or anything like that. I just set that for our Chi Alpha. For us to operate at the volume we do, if we're constantly jumping on planes, it'll be too much for our team. The only reason we can have that, because we have access, being in the Midwest, to 70% of the U.S. We can just drive. And it's really easy to drive somewhere, all right? We even have set rules, like every trip has, 16 people. Why? 4 cars. You know what I mean? So take advantage of these things that you have access to. Consider doing university ministry. Right? This is very important. If you consider doing university ministry, why? Because you have the people that can minister to a university student. That's it. That's how deep that gets. We have students that can connect with university students. Usually, youth groups, it's going to be very difficult. So again, take advantage of what we have. Go back. If you went to a place, you had a great time, it worked out really good, your students got blessed, go back. If you love yourself and you love your insanity, go back. There's no way that we can operate at the level that we operate at if we did new trips every year. There is no possible way. We cannot say we are doing 9. We cannot say we're doing. And these places, they're agreed. It takes so much effort to do a new trip. It takes an enormous. Why? Because you don't know what you're doing. They try to explain to you, like, you're gonna land there and then you can just take a bus and then you guys go, and you're like, I don't even know where I'm gonna land. Like, what do you mean? How's the bus look? I don't understand that. So you're working through all these things. So listen, going back, when you go back to a trip, so much easier. You actually do it better. You actually budget better. You actually are way more effective. Go back to places. This is extremely important. And every group kind of have these guidelines that they follow. These guidelines that they go by. And again, they're guidelines. They're not like, thus saith the Lord and thus saith the Holy Spirit. Of course, relationships really trump anything. So if you had a relationship with somebody, you're really close, they're good friends, they happen to be in the mission field, those things kind of, move and allow you to kind of break some guidelines. So we totally understand. So these are some guidelines that we want you guys to consider when picking a trip. Next slide. And these are just some guidelines that I've come across. These are some guidelines at Missouri State Chi Alpha that we follow. These are some guidelines that we saw some of the Chi Alphas that we interacted with follow. It was like productive and helpful tasks to the missionary. You know, you find out people that said, we want to go somewhere that they host well. And it's not for us, not luxury hosting, but they know how to take in a team and they know how to get that team to help them in an effective way. And this is extremely important. So you want meaningful tasks. You want things that will actually be helpful, that your students will be like, you know, we're helping. This is something that I can see where it can move this ministry forward. Relationship connection with the missionary, missions team, or mission field. If a relationship connection does not happen, I would say there's no future. That has to happen. You've seen a past, a team will come and they'll build something and they hardly meet anybody and then they leave. And all that is your experience is you go somewhere, you build, and then you left. And that relationship component is essential. We have chosen not to go back to places because they haven't had the vision to develop that. And that's something that if it doesn't happen, it just, and the relationship component is the future, right? Creates the foundation for the student to say, I'm going to give a year. I'm going to be a part of what's going on there. If that relationship component's not there, it's very difficult for that to happen. Number 3, establishing a ministry on site. There's kind of sometimes you want to go to an established ministry or their plans is to establish a ministry. You don't want to go somewhere and where just somebody kind of flies in and creates something for you and then they fly out. We personally have experienced that. We came into a place, thought that it was something else, and somebody came in, they flew in literally, they created a missions trip experience for us, and then everybody left. And you want to be careful from those things, and you want to go somewhere that whatever work you did can last there, can assist the missionary, you can come back and see the process of what you were involved, or what the philosophy that you got taught. You can come back and see that same philosophy progressing in the place that you're at. This is hugely important. Impartation of vision and ministry philosophy. Like, here's what I want. Dude, I want a student on the plane, on the car ride home. I want him crying. Just like, I want the beginning of the car ride home, I want it to be an ugly cry for some of these students, because God has this missionary has imparted their heart, their vision on this student. This is the seed that is planted literally in the student's heart. And if that impartation doesn't happen, if that understanding of what they do, and every time they're doing whatever, rather they're going and praying, and rather they're helping the community out, or they're interacting with people, if they don't understand the why behind that, it's going to be very difficult for them connected. Man, and this is the part, this is the connection part for them, the relational component. Our teams come back and they don't really, they talk about what they did, but they talk about the people they met. They talk about the people they met. They talk about their philosophy. They're like, they do this, and here's the reason why. Man, we should do something like that on this campus. So they're really a cultural understanding, training, and teaching. So we gotta understand the culture that we're interacting with. I want our students to understand the culture that they interact in. A lot of times, and this kind of prevents ignorance. This kind of, a lot of people, they fly into a country and they notice there's garbage everywhere, there's not sewage, and all of a sudden, they feel like they're the ones who placed the sewage line in their house. Like, the students like, oh man, why do they do that? Man, they should fix that. Oh, that's really, how would you fix that? Do you know about lateral lines? Do you know about septic systems? It's like there's no system here. And for them to understand that what's going on in the culture, and for them to interact with that, and for them to, for us, even for myself, to strip ourselves of our thought and just allow the gospel to be true. You know what I mean? And historically, we fell into this where a lot of times, we've taken the gospel and we're taking culture and we put it together and we've given it to people, and it's been distorted. So for them to understand the culture, for them to understand these things are crucially super important. And then it's a place that the students can do an internship. They potentially can give a year. Talk about these opportunities there. This is very important. You even tell them, be like, look, they have a give a year, or they have an internship program. This past summer, in our few other places, we had 2 students come do a summer internship. At the end of the summer, we had 2 students go to the Colorado Dream Center, and they graduated. They're given a year there. They're getting jobs and just helping out. One of them, Josh Davis, is here, and he's helping out with the sound there, and he moved up there to help them out. And why? Because those ministries have that ability to do that. So you want to make sure that they understand that vision for that to happen. And then this quote, and graduates won't give a year if they had a bad week, and they won't give a lifetime if they had a bad year. The reason I share this, because we have to understand that these experiences lend to things that like allow us to grow. So we have to understand that vision and that understanding. Okay, I'm running low on time, so we're gonna plow to some of these. All these trips they present, all these ministries, they really strategically present their mission trips to students. Next slide. One after that. And shout, that was Brian's quote. That wasn't mine. Thanks. Love you, dude. But they present, they're very strategic. They're all presented in a way, they present it as an opportunity. So did I spell something wrong? I'm always scared. Did I spell it right? Did I spell it wrong there? I know it. You have to present it in a way that it's an opportunity. Listen, the begging approach, just, please, you got to come here. No, this is an opportunity. This is why I tell to our students, when you look back at your time in college, right, on your time in spring break, you're never going to be like, dude, remember that spring break? I went home. Dude, I watched Netflix and ate ramen. Oh, dude, it was amazing. Oh, man, you're not going to pull your kids aside and be like, one time I went home and I watched Gilmore Girls the whole week and I ate ramen. It was amazing. Nobody's going to talk about that, but they will talk about how they went to another country with a group of their friends, and they literally got to look at children that are in need and look right them in the eye and pray over them. Or that one time that they looked over a city and they were praying over the city in the power of God, and they literally wept for that city. They will talk about those experiences. And I always share in a way that it's an opportunity. This is the greatest opportunity that they have. This is what they'll talk about. Hands down, when we tell our graduates, like, what do you remember? It's a mission trip. They'll talk about something, and it'll be connected to a mission trip. Make sure that you give them enough time. Most of these ministries that interact, including ourselves, they do like a missions launch or a week of missions. They bring missionaries in, and they usually do it somewhere in October and the beginning of November. And they give ample time for people to, right away, it's a part of their culture. It's a part of their fall semester. What does that week look like? You know what I mean? It's, it's tons of stuff. And I won't get into super detail of this, but, you bring in missionaries. You can bring them by video. You know what I mean? Sometimes you can't afford, and it's pretty difficult to bring somebody in from the Baltics if you're starting off. But, just have them share like a quick video and show that to your students. Talk about it in their small groups. Make it be a buzz, something that is going on that week. Have students interacting with each other. Literally make it the conversation. Put it in front of them. Share it, again, like it's an opportunity. This is, I would say, like, there's times in your ministry that you can't really, like, people will always question if you go super flashy, right? Like, but if there's a time, if you're like a super decorative person and you like the presentation, this is the time. Like in our ministry, we go all out this day. We have stage decorations. We come in. I want students to come into service and be like, yo, something different is happening, right? Because if I can present and tap dance for my students and they commit to a mission trip, that's good. Even if they have the wrong intentions, God will rock them out there, right? I say things that you can present them. I can have a student like prayer meetings. I don't care. As long as I get you a prayer meeting, you can come to a prayer meeting with the worst intentions in the world. If you're sitting down contemplating God, that's good. It's a win. So, like, this is the time that you can go all out and make sure that you keep that momentum going. Next slide. Make sure that you keep that momentum going. So at least once a month, I would say every other week, be talking about these mission trips, be talking about the trip, have somebody share a testimony, or if this is the first trip you're doing, have somebody walk up and share a fact about that area, or interesting, like, here's something interesting about this country. Here's something interesting about the missionaries we're gonna be a part of. Here's a quick story of something that happened there. So if you're starting off, man, you can give them information, but constantly keep it in front of them. That is very, very important. And make sure you set up a specific time where people can sign up. That's been consistent. They have it's not like, sign up whenever. It's like, hey, we're signing up this day. They have a specific day that you can start signing up, and that's very clear. If you kind of leave it up there, just nobody signs up. So you definitely have that for that week of presenting. So all these ministry had a specific plan on how to present these trips. Okay, next is they all consistently trained. So equip people to get to the mission field and to be effective while they're there. This is hugely important. All these ministries had a training plan. This is important. They all were very strict on their support raising plan that they had. They all did some type of support raising, whether it was with the whole entire group. They got everybody together, and some of them required everybody to be a part. They're like, oh, man, I can come up with the money. That's cool. You can still come. Or they trained their leaders very well. Is time up? Oh, dude, we're done. Dude, I'm way over it. Or they trained their leaders very well, and and then those leaders would train the students. All of them did support raising coaching, so they continually were on these students and encouraging them and following them on the journey to support raise. They planned trainings for their leaders, and then here are things to train with the teams. And this is a huge thing that came up, is attitudes. all of them addressed attitudes. And they train how to have a good attitude, how to honor the missionary, the purpose that you're going there, how to be selfless. This was something that constantly came up. One of the leaders, Matt Carpenter, said, we're managing their expectations. This is what you need to accept. They're kind of preparing them to come in and grind it out and be a part of that. Ideas for training. Man, there's tons. Prayer meetings. Some of them will have retreats. That some of them specifically will have a spring break retreat for the people who are going to spring break, and then a summer one for people who are going international, specifically for the mission trip. They were very intentional. And ideas that you can do, even Brian shared one, you can do the kind of the bucket challenge where you give them a 5-gallon bucket and they have to take a shower with it, and then when they're done, they pass it on and kind of works their way through the team, and they kind of get an idea if you're going to a very remote place that doesn't have access to these things, and they're constantly doing that. And again, with the training, I ended this, and I'm very over time. Sorry about that. Next slide is the better we train and equip, the less frustration we experience. Listen, dude. I'm totally fine with the flight being delayed. That's cool. Listen, if you go on a mission trip, I feel like, I don't even think it's sane. I think it's the Lord. It's so consistent. It is so consistent that I really think the Lord is like, man, I got this. I'm going to delay this flight. Like, this is my thing, so you can learn some things. Like, it's going to happen. A flight is going to be delayed, and the airline company is going to look at you, and they'll be like, yeah, this flight's delayed. So what? I'm like, you're like, what do you mean, so what? We're going to sleep. Oh, yeah, you're going to sleep here. Like the airport is the most cushy place in the world. Like, yeah, you're just right there. That seat over there. Like, does this seat recline? Like, and they're like, yeah, man. And it's like, and it's going to frustrate you. But here's the thing. If you don't train people properly to deal with these things, you're going to face greater frustrations. And then I end with this, and I'll briefly go through budgeting. Budgeting is very important, and I'll just share this. This is important. Budget in a way that aligns with your vision, not just the trip. And this was a huge difference to these places that I talked to. They budgeted, and they budgeted towards their vision. They budgeted in a way that aligned. Now, there's some kind of, I don't know that we want to like budget these trips exactly. Like you come back and you're like, oh my goodness, I got 10 cents. It's exact. And you're like, we budgeted awesome. Bad budget. You cannot grow. You cannot depend on budgeting exactly. You can't run that system. There's no way that you're going to work through the variables. So budget in a way that aligns with your vision. And the number one thing that all these places did, they over budgeted. They just, one of the directors told me they budget high and they add 10% on top of that. And why? Because there's no way, not the best accountant in the world can't align the budget to be exact. And if your vision is for that trip to come up with it, if your vision is to grow your missions program and they come back with the exact money, that doesn't align with the vision. So what you want to do is actually you want the teams to come back with money. You want to plan in emergency funds. You want to plan a way to bless the missionaries. You want to plan a way to grow your missions account. At one point, you're going to have to separate. I highly recommend that you separate the accounts. Why? There's money coming in that doesn't stay with you, that goes out there. And when you have your main account intertwined with that, lots of confusion. And here's a strategy that I want to share with you guys. Like all these trips, they plan the mission trip to bring money back. And here's a strategy, and this is very important. I know I'm going over time, but this is highly important. Here's a strategy that I recommend that's helped us tremendously. As these trips, as you fall back to emergency funds on these trips, an emergency doesn't happen, what you do is you take this money and you apply it towards the missions account. What does the missions account do? It aligns with your vision. You're allowed to bless the missionary. You're allowed to fly that missionary. Hey, on a missions on, we'll fly you in. We'll bless you. Why? Because we planned for this. We want you to interact with our students. People that told me, like, one of the things that you, is like, what's one of the musts that you think? Don't have the missionary just like be somebody that they meet in the summer. Have them build a relationship with them. Fly them in. Let them be your retreat speaker. Let them come in and speak to service. Let them hang out. Just fly them into that. So you want to have a budget that will align with that. And then this is huge. This is how you can grow your missions budget exponentially, right? One, do not budget for the hoping that you get a good deal on flights, all right? Flights are designed for you not to get a good deal, okay? Like, it's just designed for that, okay? But here's where you budget very high on that. And then if you every year put away and grow your missions account, every place that I talked to had money that they can float. And I asked them, either some had it in their general account or others planned it into their missions accounts over years that they build it up. And I said, if you did not have that money to float, how would it work for you? And they said it would be extremely difficult. One of them even suggested a loan plan if you didn't have it. So all of them, as their missions program grew, they had money that they can float. And here's why I want to share this with you. This is very important. If you grow money, just keep putting money away, kind of building. Our goal is Missouri State Chi Alpha is to float all the flights. Here's what you do. You budget for it to be high, and then like a hawk, all right, your missions director is on that internet. It's part of their weekly routine, looking up flights. And then when you find a deal on the flight, you ensure the commitment from the team, and then you buy those flights. And at times we bought them at half price. But still, they have to raise what they committed to in the beginning. Now you get flights cheaper. You have way more money to work with. We've literally have gotten flights for half the price because we're able to do that. We're able at times to float the flights. And if 4 people drop off the trip, we will still be under the original budget that we set. And the reason that we can do that is that we put money away and we allow this money to then exponentially help the cause of the mission, all right? And then what you do with this excess money, you bless the missionary. You fly him in. You continue to flow back into the ministry. This is highly, highly important. And then, listen, get insurance. If you don't get insurance, you at one point want to build stuff to be great and watch it crumble in front of your face. Like, if you don't have insurance, you're one incident away from literally destroying everything you build with the missions program. Yeah, and National Chi Alpha has insurance, and you can register your trips. I know, listen, I hate forms. I really feel if I ever stop serving Jesus and I go to hell, I would do forms for the rest of my life. It would be like, oh, you want to come in hell? Here, you have to fill out this form. It would literally, that's what's going to happen to me. I hate filling out forms. But listen, information allows this movement to grow. And dude, for years, we didn't know what was going on out there. We don't know who was going where and what was happening. And then the people on the field would turn to the national team. Why aren't you doing this? Why? Because they don't know. Register your trips. Then they know. They can make decisions that would benefit the movement. Register and get insurance. All right, and then how to start. I'm here. We'll talk about that. I'm gonna have to skip over that, and we'll talk about. I went extremely over time. What time? I got to 4:45. I thought it was 4:15. I'm the greatest. Yes. I say better to do Q&A. Dude, I thought I was way under time. Dude, I'm always late. You saw me kicking into gear because I'm a pro at that stuff. All right, and then just one thing that I want to say on getting started. Go to that. All All right, so here's the thing, getting started, all right? Go somewhere doable. If there's anything I would tell people on getting started, all right, one, I don't care if you have 5 people in your Chi Alpha, like, bro, you and 3 people, whatever, they all go. Just make it a part of, like, create dues just for them to go on a mission trip, all right? And they don't know any better, all right? It's just 5 of them, don't worry, okay? And go somewhere doable. Go somewhere where you can go. Don't start in Uganda with a missionary that's the first year there. It's not wise. Build to there, have that vision. But like when we first started, again, we went to Atlanta, very easy. You jump in the car, drive. It's 11 hours. It was doable. This year, we send a team to Russia. We send a team to Ukraine. We send a team to Dominican Republic. So, we've sent teams to Kenya. We send teams to Jordan. We try to go back to Jordan. It's very difficult to get back to Jordan. There's a lot of people who want to go there. That's a great thing. So go somewhere that's doable, that you can grow your program. You can grow the heart of missions. And that would be, besides all the other points, that would go back, definitely go back. Go back. Atlanta, we still go to Atlanta. Every year we go to Atlanta. And it's been incredible what God has done there. And the places that we go back to is the places that people give a year to and become missionaries to. All right. And then the last thing, I end with this quote and getting started. All right. This is, when you're small, do the things that you want to do when you're big. So listen, like a lot of people, they have kind of this mindset that like, oh, we'll do that when we get there. Man, start doing them now. Start doing them now. That's highly, highly important. So you want to do that. So wherever you're at, like, and even on this, you're like, man, when can we do that? I would say start doing something now towards that. That's highly, highly important. People that told me that, and just absolutely amazing. Okay, what we're going to do is open up to Q&A. Again, from my research I did, I had so much information, and I had to make horrible decisions of cutting information out. Life was very hard for me through that time. I went through depression, but then the Lord brought me out, and here I am in the breakout. So what we're going to do is we're going to bring Derek Britt. I know I got also some people around here from missions program. Live Dead is here, right? If you're part of Live Dead, yeah. Live Dead, India, yeah. I know y'all like rolling deep now. Whoa, hey, what's up? Arab, bro. I know like Live Dead like broke up and you got like sectors and gangs, and now it's like, and then y'all like look at each other, like, yo, we love you. What's up? Let's go. So I know it's huge now. I know I know probably other missionaries here. So if you guys, want to help answer some of these, but any questions that you guys have to dialogue about these things. Oh yeah, sweet. I first, reference to Jesus. He believed in the plan of empowerment so much that he left. Like, that's his plan. Like, so there has to be a release and empowerment in anything that we do in ministry. And so starting from that foundation is, the question is the vision that you have for missions, can you carry it alone? And if it was just you carrying it, how far can it go? So at one point, you're going to have to follow these things, choosing right places, budgeting right, and having proper training and discipleship, that you pass it on, and you'll be surprised. They'll do better than you. My students are better recruiters than I am. They lead trips better than I do. So that's one thing that's huge. And especially in the beginning stages, students have to be a part of that process. Students have to come along with that. And I will say this, one thing that I notice a lot of these programs, not too many have students leading. All of our spring break trips, students leading them full on. And we actually have a system that if it'll take too much time to unfold. But like we have students lead. We started asking ourselves questions. How would it look for a student to lead a trip? And that's why we on spring break trips, it's only 16 4 cars, and that's a number we feel a student can manage. We realize the 40 and the 50 trip that's really only designed for a full-time staff member. So we wanted to start designing these trips that we can say to a student, do you want to lead? And then we also created a whole system that will facilitate that. We started overseeing the trips, and then we'll have 2 student leaders come on the trip. And then after 2 years, they became so experienced that then they oversaw the trip, and they have 2 leaders. The job of the overseer is not to directly lead. The job of the overseer is to advise, disciple, and encourage the other 2 leaders. And basically, this came from a very thing. It's like, dude, you want to lead a mission trip? And students were like, no. I'm like, why not? Dude, you love missions. I don't know what I'm doing. How about if I came with you and just like helped you out? Yeah, I'll go. So then just created the discipleship process within our mission trip, and it goes. So
I think this is being recorded, and so if you're listening or in here, as far as stateside trips and students leading trips and the system, you need to talk to Andy, because they are like killing it in that area, and he knows what he's doing. I would say for me, stateside trips are very different from international trips. I think of like, what is a parent okay with? And that's just the world that we live in. And an 18 to 22-year-old, driving to Atlanta or, with their friends or whatever is pretty much a typical college student. But going to, Arab world it's a little different in terms of what we're looking for and how we kind of protect that. And so we just think of those a little bit differently. But if you just process how students operate, they go on spring break trips all the time. Usually they're getting wasted on the beach or whatever, but their friends are inviting friends, and they're getting hotels, and they're making plans, and they're doing all that. So essentially what we're doing is taking the power of that and just saying, let's do missions, And we haven't done as much of that. We're learning that from Andy. And so I would just encourage everybody to follow up, because he's not going to be able to talk about it today, but they've got it down. And a lot of it was because they were trying to think of how are we going to accomplish this in the big picture, because we don't have enough staff to do this. And so it expanded their missions, like exploded it because of that. So
yeah, definitely foreign trips. We usually staff does that. There's been a few trips that students have done it. So the trips have gone well.
And the biggest thing about it is, and I know this about Brian, is choosing where you go. Because if a student leading a trip to a place that's really established, really great hosts, really know what they're doing, they're meeting them at the airport, they basically got to get them from your city to that country, and they're in good hands. So that's a big deal. If they're going in no man's land and having to run everything, then that's a different deal. But that goes back to the choosing piece, I think.
Definitely. So just to get your question clear, you're saying from the time that you present the trips, and then if they submit an application to do the trip, I know in some Chi Alphas on certain mission trips, you have to submit an application. They want people who, in some of these places they're going to, just somebody who understands why they're there. So I get that and certain that, and then how much time before like it's the cutoff, right? That hey, you can't apply for this mission trip. For us, for our spring break trips, if somebody has the money, they can like the day before, if it's possible, like they can jump on the team. We're that could happen. Now we don't tell it, but we leave room for that. For foreign trips, usually the day we buy the flights, it's really that or enough time for them to get the visas, and if they don't have a passport, that's usually the defining for us. But again, that's not public information. We always present it like, bro, this needs to happen now.
So I think for us, we've run into something. So Allison and Nicole over here, they're would be good people to talk to, because they're from our ministry, but they deal with a lot of those issues. Like somebody signed up and then had to drop because of their parents or something, or their parents did some research and they read the worst article about this country that's ever been written, and bombs are dropping, or just that kind of stuff that we deal with when we're actually trying to take the gospel to unreached people groups. That actually a lot of times is what we're dealing with. And but anyway, I think just in terms of how it actually works, we go really big on the why, and starting our missions week off with it's a mini world mission summit. So we're doing everything you could think of at a world mission summit, we're doing in that week. Meal with a missionary, all of the above. We have really unique things set up for that purpose. But the first week, we meet on Tuesday nights. The first Tuesday night, we're presenting the trips. We've been talking probably about the fact that trips are coming, but we're not telling anybody where we're going. And our spring break trips currently are all international trips, or not all, but like we do all of our missions program over spring break, which some people think is a little crazy, but we have particular reasons for why we do that. We like it as a momentum. When people come back after spring break, they're sharing testimonies of what God did, and all of our students are hearing it, rather than coming back in the summer and nobody's hearing it, and we just kind of start the next year and move on. So we like that, but we're constantly in rethinking mode. So, but anyway, going back to that first Tuesday, we're sharing those trips, revealing them. We're going to this country, we're going to this country, this country. Next week, if you want to go to any of these countries, you want to go to any of these trips, you need a $100 deposit, and we're opening the doors to sign up at this time. And we have people come up and they put in their top 3 trips. And so this year we had people waiting in line, like long line, to get into the trip that they wanted to get in. We'll navigate it carefully. Like if we got a senior that's thinking about giving a year somewhere, we're not going to let them lose their trip because they had class at 5 o'clock and didn't get there in time. So we're careful about that. But we're building that up. And I think a week is a good amount of time. Like you need to get all your ducks in a row, figure this out, and a little bit of pressure of like, you need to be ready and hold your spot. And so when they're coming with the money, they're usually having to have that conversation with their parents that you're talking about or whatever. And we usually have a waiting list happening there too. And so if they come back and they can't do it and their parents said this, then we're bumping that next person onto that trip. And that's the idea anyway. It gets a little messy, but because we're doing those international trips, we got to do a little more planning on that, obviously. Stateside, we had a whole trip fall apart this year for reasons that we could not have foreseen and had nothing to do with us and all that. And we basically just had to have a meeting and send them over to another trip, and it was easy, So that stuff is not as important. I'm assuming you're talking more about the international side of things because that's a little trickier. But
and you were going towards people backing out, or like sort of, having a conversation with the parents. Yeah. Oh, dude, depending on the parent, straight up, man. I've had so many I won't say.
Yeah, and I think that goes to a broader point that's really important that we've noticed is credibility. And you have to bring that into everything that you do, every piece of communication that you send out, the things that you build. When you're trying to build for a larger picture, international, we've tried to do it for our CMIT, we've tried to do it for our Give Years, tried to do it for our Expeditions teams, because like that's it. Like what you said, the 25-year-old and 55-year-old, the first trip we ever went on was to Northern Ireland. No reason, like you said, nice place. We went, just know we need to do this. And we're at the airport. We show up with, I don't know how many people, 20, 15, 20, I don't know. And all the parents are there with their kids lined up, as I'm checking in, whatever. And the lady at the desk is telling me that all of our flights are canceled. And I was just very aware in that moment, every single parent over here is watching how I react in this moment. And that's not just on the trip, obviously, it's every step of the way. So we don't do that. But I like something along that line. We need to figure out how to implement that, I think, on our end. That's just a great thing. But credibility is a huge deal for your campus as well, because they're going to have issues sometimes with how you do trips. And we've had to have Expeditions help us with that, because they're like, hey, this is on a, travel advisory and you can't go here or whatever. So we've had to navigate that. So there's some interesting things about how to do that I could probably help you with too. But Brian, we're almost at the end. Is this along this line? I don't know what you want to do, if you need to say one more thing or what. I was going to say for sure, Brian, talk, and then Andy, you can wrap it up.
All right. How much time? All right. Boom. So, hey, just if you guys have more questions, like, again, there's an enormous amount of information. But if in our ministry we want, like, if our vision is for people, if for students to live a life that they interact with God's mission, right? So that means that they live it out wherever they go, wherever they're working in their life, that God's mission. And I think this is the biggest transition that we're doing in students' lives now. And this is one thing that we have to communicate. Culturally, we communicated that ministry happened through a pastor in a setting and in a church, and you brought people there. But what the gospel teaches is that ministry and God's mission is so much more flexible, so much more real, so much more deeper than that. It is, God's mission is so great that we can take it with wherever we go, right? And God's mission compels us so much that it moves us to move somewhere else so we can be more effective with that mission. And if that's where we want to have students be, that no matter what happens in America, if the economy drops and churches can't afford to keep their building, if they kick you off campus, and that, your discipleship plan and God's mission in their life goes on beyond that, if tragedy happens in their life, it is God's mission so much more fluid and powerful than anything that can happen here on this earth. And if that is our plan, and our ministry doesn't interact with that plan and give students an empowering thought that they can be a part of that, they can give towards it, they can pray, or they can go themselves. And if we don't have a plan for that, then it's just not going to happen. They're not going to be thinking of that. So my encouragement to you is that, where is your vision for students? How do you want them to interact and live out in God's great commission? And what is your ministry's plan for them to interact with that idea, that thought, and that very challenge that God gave us? And when we do that, the Holy Spirit does great things. Thank you so much, guys. Love you.
Hey, awesome. Brian, can you just raise your hand real quick? So Brian's been talking a lot, if you didn't know why. He's the Expeditions director for Chi Alpha. And if you have questions, I mean, Brian is a wealth of information and resource, and has the right brain for all of this stuff. It's why he's in the role that he's in. So I just wanted to make sure you knew who he was. We can kind of assume that, but he would have just a lot to say if you had questions and all that stuff. So just wanted to say, hey, thanks for coming, everybody.
Yeah, he had more quotes than he was laying them out, the quotes, when I was on him on the phone. It was like bam, bam. So they were awesome.